Good afternoon, United States of America. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful day that you're having, because I'm enjoying mine. I got Sarah sitting across from me. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come over here and hang out and talk nursing and anything else that will come up in this conversation.
Okay.
It's going to be a fun one.
Sounds good.
I know it will be. It's going to be awesome. Well, let's start off with that, because right out of high school, you went to nursing school, correct?
Right. Correct. So initially, I was thinking I wanted to be a teacher through high school. Did a project on like a who am I, like, you know, what's my future career type of project in English class, sophomore year, I think, and realized I did not want to be a teacher. What's my next plan?
I'm good. Thank you.
So nursing was a natural fit. I've always been kind of that you know, empathy caretaker kind of thing, and so I started looking into college. It was a big deal for me to find the right college. I searched really, really hard. And it was before the internet. Take note.
For specific reasons, or just
because I wanted the best. I wanted to make sure that I was in a good, you know, I did everything. I was kind of stubbornly independent that way. Wanted to find the best. I was a decent student. I wasn't great, but I was decent, and wanted to make the right decision. So I did all my research all by mail, right? Because we had no internet.
Yes.
So I had like a whole banker's box size full of mailings that I got from all these schools, and I would just rifle through all the brochures and try to find the right thing. And went to a couple college visits, ended up settling on Viterbo University up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and went and registered for my classes. My parents took me, and Peter came along, and I was, you know, thought I was excited, but then when I got home, I spent that whole summer with horrible insomnia. I just wanted to, I didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't settle in. It was probably late July, and I'm like, this isn't right. This is not the right thing. So at the last minute, I pulled out and decided I was going to do something different. So Peter, again, took me on a college visit to Concordia University in River Forest, Chicago. And we did it. We pulled the trigger. It was a great nursing program, amazing. Just their board's passing rate was really high. Their NCLEX pass rate was great. So I'm like, let's do it. We're doing it, right? So I moved in a few weeks later, and it was hell. It was horrible.
Oh no!
I didn't know. I was so naive as whatever, little 18-year-old Sarah. I didn't know. I thought college was college. Every college would be the same. I needed to look into the programs and the credentials and all the, you know, the academic side of it. So that's all I looked at. I didn't even consider student life.
Dorm rooms and everything else.
Oh my gosh, it was not a good fit for me. It was an extremely religious school, which is fine by me, but I hadn't really been raised in that kind of environment, and the students that were there judged me kind of hard for that. Most of them were pastors' daughters, and the dorm room that I stayed in was, whole entire dorm was girls only, which is fine. It's fine, but they were very, very strict on visiting rules and things like that. And obviously, I'd been with Peter for almost 4 years at that point, it was a little over 4 years by that point. And he couldn't visit me. And I was like, and then they would all go to chapel when the bell rang, and it was culture shock for me, for sure. And I was like, okay, this isn't right. So I need to figure out plan B. At the last minute, I just jumped ship and went to NIU. I transferred to NIU at the second semester of my nursing school, and which was my backup school. I didn't want to go to NIU because I thought the best of the best. I wouldn't want to go where all the other, you know.
You wanted the college experience.
I wanted
somewhere
to go
outside of
different.
Northern Illinois.
I wanted something that I didn't know anybody at. I didn't want to be what another Harvard student who went to NIU. Like wanted something different. But it turns out I was
stubborn.
I know, I'm annoying. Like, what the hell? But it was awesome. I loved it. I loved that university feel, the, go team, the whole, like, all the things that they had in place, all the resources that they had. I loved it. And it turns out the nursing program was awesome, too.
They're phenomenal.
Rock solid, yeah.
Yeah,
and I got
their nursing program over there, from what I understand, because I didn't take it,
was
but
awesome.
I hear it's a phenomenal program.
And I was super happy, and it everything happens,
Mm-hmm.
It works out.
So how long did you go to college there for?
For 4 years. So I was there for my second semester, my freshman year, until I graduated senior year. So the remaining 3.5 years.
So you graduated with a bachelor at that point?
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
So after you graduated, obviously you got married and all that kind of stuff in between all that.
Well, so the January before I graduated, I went to a college fair, a job fair, a career fair, and found this. I talked to somebody from Rockford Memorial Hospital, and they had the student nurse internship program where you could go to the hospital and basically as a student nurse intern and try on different units.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I would go there as a student nurse intern, basically shadowing nurses in any unit in the hospital that I wanted to. So I could pick what I wanted. Again, I was now in the last few months of my senior year, so I focused on women and children's because that was always my plan. In fact, going into nursing school, I wanted to be a midwife. That was my end-all goal, was to be a midwife, a certified nurse midwife. I wanted to deliver babies. That was what I wanted. And so I went to this. I started focusing on the women and children's units. So I, shadowed the mother-baby unit, the labor and delivery unit, the high-risk moms unit, and then I went to the NICU. And I was like, oh, NICU, this is super cool. So I spent some time there and actually interviewed and had my first job, like acceptance, way before I even graduated.
Okay, so for those of us that don't know what NICU is.
NICU is neonatal intensive care unit. So neonatal means newborn or new birth, intensive care. So just like if, anybody went to intensive care unit. So it's an intensive care unit specifically for very sick newborn babies. So whether they're premature or have a genetic concern or some other problem after birth.
You're there.
Oh, that's where they come. Yep.
That's where they go.
Yep.
So then you started there literally right after college.
Literally right after. In fact, before I graduated college, I was working there as this intern. Yeah. And then once I graduated, then they had, at that time, you could work what they called license pending. So I was an RNLP, license pending. So I hadn't actually sat for my boards yet, but they basically hired me on, with good faith, that I would pass my test.
That you were going to pass them.
And then I would become an RN, like a straight RN. So
straight RN for little babies.
For newborn babies.
So once you got into that NICU, you were like, oh my gosh, this is it.
Awesome. This is awesome. But unfortunately, I was newbie, right? They put me on the night shift. They told me this is going to be your schedule, and I would work 1 day on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. So I'm literally either preparing for sleep, recovering from sleep, or thinking about sleep all the time. I was
because you're working nights. Do you remember what your hours were back then?
It was still 12-hour nights, so it was
8 to 8 or something.
7 to 7, 7p to 7a.
Yeah, and then that day you get off, you're like, well.
Plus, I lived an hour away. So I was commuting from Rockford to Delavan. Peter and I rented a little house in Delavan right after we got married.
Yeah.
Or actually right after I graduated college and right before we got married.
Yeah, so that's a 12-hour shift every time.
Brutal. 12-hour shift and then 14 total with drive time.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
That's what I meant, 14-hour shift. Come on, Kyle. Do math there.
Math is hard.
Duh.
So it was hard. I was newly married and never slept next to my husband hardly ever. It sucked.
Sorry, Pete. But on the other hand, now you were doing something that you really enjoyed doing.
Well, it's true. It's true. I did love it. So I have these migraine headaches, and I noticed that I was getting a lot of migraine headaches. I
get them too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I just got a new medication. Amazing. It's like changing my life.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to talk about that.
Absolutely. So I had always considered, like when I was in nursing school, I really liked the women and children stuff, but I also considered this community health. I liked my school nursing rotation when I was in nursing school, so I kind of thought, well, maybe. Oh, and also the big thing was the holidays. I was really having a hard time adjusting to not being around for
Christmas
the holidays
and Thanksgiving
and the weekends. I was in the chapter of my life where like everybody you know is getting married and doing all those things. So I was missing weddings left and right. I'm like, this is bullshit.
This sucks.
Why am I missing everything? And so I'm like, well, maybe this is not right. Oh, in fact, I remember the day I had the epiphany, like maybe this is not for me because I need to be home. So I was at Walmart and I saw a whole rack of baby girl like Easter dresses. And I was like, I'm never going to get to put the Easter dress on my baby. I didn't have any babies at that time. I did not. I wasn't even thinking we weren't even close to having babies at that time. But in my head, I'm like, I got to do something for my future to make sure I'm there to put these baby dresses on. So
that's so funny.
Start looking into options, started talking to some school nurse friends that I had and got like the dream district that I would want to be in. I went to Marengo Community High School. I got hired, which I was like, what, really? I'll never forget. They called me in the middle of a sleep day. I had just gotten off work. I had done my interview, whatever. I got the phone call. I answered my phone, and it was the principal who had the Southern twang accent. He's like, is this Sarah Shanks? Because we want you as our new school nurse. I was like, oh, okay, like through my sleepy eyes. I'm like, oh, thank you. Whatever. So I ended up leaving Rockford Memorial in the NICU to go into school nursing only like less than a year and a half after I started. Difficult decision, but I was excited because it was also something I was interested in doing.
Now, were you like high school?
I was a school nurse and the health occupations and CNA instructor. So I was half-time teacher, half-time nurse, zero teaching education.
No, but you said you kind of earlier. You said you kind of want to do that.
How things work out. So I went to this, started this position. No resource, right? Nobody else in the building was a nurse. And they all were teachers, but they assumed I'd been gone to like teaching, like college. I hadn't. I was 23 years old and I did not know anything. Like nobody showed me the way to like, even like the logistics of, what's an eligibility report like 3 weeks into school? Like, I didn't know there was an eligibility report. I was supposed to be like saying if these athletes can't play ball. I didn't know. Nobody said anything.
Well, I guess I got some homework to do tonight.
It's a good thing everyone's passing my class and most of them are females. Whatever.
Hey, they play sports too, right? So
yes, that's true. There was, I guess, volleyball. Mostly it was fall sports. But gosh, I was like, I felt so out of sorts. And I had some really, really fragile students. So I'm trying to be the school nurse and I'm trying to learn this whole new career with no support, no mentorship.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm super green, right? Anyway, I'm only 23 years old. Had only been a nurse for a little over a year. And I had some very, very fragile students, that medical-wise. Severe epileptic, advanced cystic fibrosis with some really bad lungs. And I was getting, but I was it. I was the nurse and the teacher, supposedly at the same time. So I carried a radio on my hip. And when I would get called to a medical emergency, I had to leave my classroom unattended. So now there's a classroom full of 15 to 25 teenage students unattended, right?
What could go wrong?
So I'm booking it down these like crickety old stairs. Oh, I don't know if you went to Marengo, didn't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
I went to Harvard.
Okay.
I've been in Marengo High School.
So the old Marengo High School, where the middle school is now, above the auditorium, there was like a class, like basically like an attic, above the auditorium they had built some classrooms in. That's where my classroom was. So I went up like these like service stairs, like, you know, like what you'd see like in a hotel, you know, they were like
spiral stairs.
I mean, they were kind of, and up to my classroom, was the only way up there, and it was dingy and small and like claustrophobic and as far away as possible from the nurse's office. So if I got called to a medical emergency over my phone, like, Mrs. Shanks, what's your 20? Like, I'm in my classroom. They're like, we need you in the nurse's office right now. So I'd like bolt out of my classroom, down the stairs, down the hall, down the ramp, cross like, what? And so I'm like running. And by the time I get to this
emergency.
Yeah, who's either I've got a kid who's blue, I've got a kid who's in a full-on seizure, like all these things, and then I've got like eventually they sent somebody to cover my classroom. It was very, very stressful.
Yeah, because you would think that if you're the the school nurse that's there, you probably shouldn't be too far from your classroom. So if somebody's got to take a rain check to move their classroom elsewhere.
I think I cried every single day of that school year. It was awful. I'd come home and I'd be like, and I would be there till like 7 or 8 at night every night, like trying to do like the paperwork side. Because again, I had no mentor. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this, all these physicals and all these immunizations and, make sure that everybody's good for sports and all the things. Like I just was winging it, to be honest. So why did I go back for my second year? And the answer is they were building the brand new school. And I knew that my classroom and my office shared a door. So it was literally, I was in 2 places at one time.
Yeah, you literally can open the door and be like,
it's got to be better.
I'll be right back.
It's got to be better. Yeah. And so I went back for my second year and I was right. It was so much better. I knew what I was supposed to do. Like could develop a routine. Long story short, I stayed there for 18 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, once you got into that new school where your classroom is right next to the office, you had a lot less running around.
Less running.
Plus, you had now almost a year of experience underneath your belt.
Yep.
So you knew how to juggle everything that you needed to juggle. Absolutely. You knew what paperwork you needed to get done. You knew all of these things. Yep. So first year, learning curve.
Huge learning curve.
Right?
Yeah. Failed big time.
Second year, A.
Yeah,
because everything was way better for you.
Way better. And I could then focus on like building relationships with the students and doing the things that I knew I needed to do, focus on having interesting activities in the classroom rather than just basically mirroring whatever the last
reading
teacher
out of a book.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, how horrible. But
welcome to Harvard. No.
No. So teaching the CNA program was really cool. I really, really loved that. So teaching basically 16, 17-year-old kids how to take care of an elderly person and become vulnerable and like watch them blossom from being terrified to being competent caregivers was really, really rewarding.
So that's that's what you ended up doing then was teaching.
I was doing both of it. I was still the school nurse,
correct,
and doing the classroom. Right,
but the classroom side was like an introduction to CNA. Then is that what that was?
It was an introduction, but it was also then actually their certification. So I taught several classes. So that I actually certified high school kids
to be CNAs.
To be CNAs in a hospital or in a nursing home or home health care. I mean, it was like a pretty big deal.
Hell yeah, it is.
And so I really, really loved it. Plus, I was the faculty advisor for an organization called HOSA, HOSA, HOSA.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, Health Occupation Students of America is what it used to stand for, but now it's just like Future Health Professionals, kind of like FFAs, not Future Farmers. It's kind of the same thing. So that I love too because we did tons of community service. We hosted all the blood drives. The kids like really. It was very rewarding for me. And so I loved it for a really, really long time until I didn't. And then I just didn't. And I was burnt out from a lot of things. And
well, at that point in time, like you've been head of this for, like you said, 18 years.
18 years.
So you've put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of time. I'll say that again, because to be the school nurse and to be teaching health classes and to be certifying CNAs and then to be on the board, and then it's like when do you get a little me time?
Well, eventually, so my program kept growing. I kept getting more and more and more students into my program, which meant they had to add more classes, which meant they had to pull away from the nursing side. Like, that was less. So then they finally hired a new nurse who would cover the classroom or cover the office while I was in the classroom. So I wasn't getting pulled out of class anymore, which was awesome. But then my classroom grew more and more and more. And before you know it, hey, I've got the same load of classes as a regular teacher. So therefore, they transitioned me full-time teaching and not in the nurse's office anymore. So I was a full-time like nurse educator, essentially. So there was a nurse who was in the office full-time. And like when a regular teacher would have us like a sixth assignment, they called it, where they had to cover a lunch supervision or they had to have a study hall that they supervised, something like that. My sixth assignment was covering the nurse's lunch. So I would be in the nurse's office while she took a duty-free lunch, and that was it. So I didn't have to cover any lunches. I didn't have like cafeteria supervision. I didn't have to do hallway duty. You didn't have to
homeroom or whatever.
No, so that was great. I gave away I handed out the lunchtime meds, and I, checked blood sugars with students, and then I just basically answered the phone. I was her for 45 minutes. That was it. I wasn't bad at all. So.
Did you like that though? Did you like, at that point, did you like teaching
I loved
full time?
I did.
Compared to
for a long time,
being
I
a
loved
nurse?
It. I did, because I found a lot of the things in the nurse's office to be a little petty, which sounds bad. I know it sounds really bad, but like students that were kind of making up things so that they could go home from school. They didn't really want to be at school. They weren't actually sick. They weren't, wasn't not much I could do for them because they were lying, or let's be honest. They weren't being super truthful, or they maybe just had some anxiety kind of reasons why they would come to the nurse's office a lot. And it was hard to get them back into the classroom. So I did feel less joy in the nurse's office than I did in the classroom, because I felt like I could really connect with students who cared, like they really wanted to do something. And I think my profession is amazing, and I would I would never talk bad about the nursing profession. I think that it's literally, you get your RN, you can do anything. Anything. It's amazing. Like I think I'm like a perfect example of that. I was from something very critical to community health to teaching to, sitting on these different committees that I've sat on that are like...
You learn so much.
So much. You could go into insurance. You could go into legal. You could go, long-term care, acute care, office,
teaching.
All these things. So many things. It's just, I think it's really amazing. And you'll never be bored. If you're bored, it's your own fault. There's other options. I mean, really, there's so many things that you can do.
Because you went back to school during that time too, didn't you?
I did. So right away, as soon as I got hired, part of my contract was that I would become a certified school nurse, which fine, no big deal. That's cool, right? In order for me to go onto the teacher's salary schedule, a lot of school nurses don't. They get paid hourly. This gig was I would be the certified nurse, which means I would go onto the same schedule that a teacher goes on to. So you can, like every year you move over, more education, you move down, or you move down for years and over for education. So I was, again, 23. I was kind of a nerd. Like I liked school. I liked, doing that stuff, and I did okay in it. So I just kept going to school. I just kept going. I got my certification. That was cool. I did all that which got me a little raise. Then I thought, well, you know what? I might as well get my master's degree, because I can move over then. I can get more money, right? I can try to, because I did, by the way, take about a $10,000 pay cut to go from the hospital to the school. So that was significant as a newlywed and, married to a farmer. We know this, right?
What are you talking about?
I'm just saying. And so I'm
sure Pete appreciates this.
Oh,
just to be honest.
Absolutely.
He's like, I'm married to a registered nurse. What do I got to worry about?
I mean, we talk commonly about how I'm the sugar mama of the situation here. Like, it's no secret. So I got my master's degree, Master's of Science in Nursing. So it's an MSN with a specialization in education. that's like my job. I totally described my job at the time. That was so I graduated in nursing school in 2002. I graduated with my master's in 2006. Okay, so I kind of chugged along, got it done. Which basically education-wise put me pretty far over on the salary schedule, but then I could just keep taking credits to max out on the salary schedule to go all the way over to the edge. So it was a master's plus 32 more graduate credits. So I was just taking credits like every summer, like just trying to like pound my way over on that, just to make money. But it was all good stuff. That was where I learned how to be a teacher. Was because I was taking these summer classes that would give me tricks. Like, this is a way that you can engage students. This is how you're going to get them talking. It's not about me talking all the time. It's about them talking or them doing stuff with their hands and different, like, levels of intelligence, like, how they're, like live event learning, that they're, like to experience something and to simulate an event and all those things is what I learned at taking those classes. So that was huge in making me a better teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they're teaching you all these things to be a better teacher, then you can go into the classroom and be a better teacher.
Right. And it wasn't like theory of teaching. It was like, can I take to my classroom tomorrow and use it? And I did. And I loved it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And it made my content so much more interesting to my students, which was cool. So,
that's crazy. I'm just trying to process all that. So, yes. So you had your master's and then went to go like, oh, we need a few more credits to max this out.
Get my money.
So you started taking these extra courses, and these extra courses helped you tremendously.
Tremendously. And they were cheap too, because I would, get the most bang for my buck because they were usable content I could use, like I said, in my classroom tomorrow if I wanted to. And they were like $350.
Was this online then?
No, they were face-to-face and a week long. It was during the summer. I was off all summer. So I had all this time, so I had to find a babysitter for a week because I had little ones at that time. So I would find 1 week, Monday through Friday, like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'd sit in this classroom, like interesting and learning and like being able to apply. Like that was the goal of this particular brand of classes that they hosted. That was bring your own content and then let's turn our ideas using your content. So like basically we were creating lessons every single day I was there. So it was like, that's it. Like I was getting my credits. It was quick and like done. Then I could come back into the school year ready to roll. That was cool.
That sounds like it's a pretty good gig.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point.
It was. And I loved it. I was super rewarded. I had an amazing schedule. I was with my kids. It was like my whole life, my thought was I wish I could be a stay-at-home mom. Like I just want to have babies and I want to be a mom and I want to do the thing, and I couldn't. I knew that wasn't really in the books for me, so this in my head was like the next best thing. Next best thing. I could still spend, once they were in school, we basically had the same schedule, and I was home all summer. I had 2 weeks at Christmas, a whole week at spring break, lots of days around Thanksgiving. I was never gone for a holiday. It was like unheard of nursing schedule. You don't get that.
It's phenomenal.
You don't get that. And I was spoiled with it for a real long time.
Because you get to see your kids grow up too. You get to be involved in their life. And not to mention your husband as well.
Absolutely,
I'm sure he appreciates it.
Right, yeah, right. Because then, I could do the mom thing and he didn't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
He could just...
He could go do what he needs to do. He could go do the farm thing and
be a dad when, we're all, right, he was a great dad, but I'm just saying like he was, I could do all the baths and the dinners and the parent-teacher conferences and all the things that come with that.
Yeah, exactly. And so you brought up earlier, you said you loved it until you didn't.
Yeah, I kind of...
It sounds like you just got burnt out.
I totally got burnt out of you, and I didn't even know it at the time. But when looking back on it, like that 6 months after I had left that situation, I looked at like a list of burnout symptoms, and I was like, whoa.
I got 40 of those.
Check. Like every single one. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how symptomatic I was.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look back on something like that. Because I did the same thing. I mean, I left a job and that I really enjoyed my job. But I left that job, and after I got out of there, I was like, wow. I didn't realize how unhappy I really was.
Yeah. Yep.
And like you said, it took 6 months to figure it out, or a year to figure it out. But then you leave there and you go, wow, I'm sleeping better at night, kind of. I'm not near as irritable and cranky as I was before, and all of these things are because of I'm going to use this as just a loose term, but because of how I felt that environment was toxic. So when you look at it that way, and then you take a step back and you really evaluate it, and you go, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did love the job that I did. I really did. But everything that was involved, and during the time that it was involved, because I think you left about the same time I did.
I think so. I think we did a little career shift around the same time.
My career shift was 3 years ago.
Yeah, same.
This month, last month, actually.
April 8th was my hire date it was my 3-year was on April 8th.
Yeah, my 3-year was in August.
Well, but I had to finish out the school. So I got hired in April, but I had to finish out the school year. So really June 1st, I guess, would have been actually my true.
But that was during one of the weirdest freaking times that this world has ever seen in a lot of years. So it totally makes sense. I seen a statistic out there that said from December of 2020 to February of 2022, 35% of the people in the United States change careers.
Isn't that something?
That's a third.
That's huge. So, I mean, that if you look at like the big picture of that, okay, so we have how many novice people in their positions, initially, which...
Well, that's one way to look at it, I guess. The other way I look at it is, how did your previous job handle everything when shit hit the fan?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I know a lot of people that say, my company didn't give a shit. I love my job. They didn't give a shit. So we're still here doing what we've been doing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then other places were like, oh no.
Do you mean like as far as going remote or doing all that stuff? Okay, well, I was in education. So,
Can I ask how that worked during that time?
Yeah, so actually my school was one of the first to go back. A lot of the other McHenry County schools chose to stay remote then. So, obviously we all went March 17th or 16th or whatever that was of 2020.
Mid-March.
We all left. And then that following fall, we came back day 1, August. So a lot of other high schools were still remote all the way until the second semester,
until
or
December,
even all
or
the
even
way.
longer.
Yes, yes. Yep. So, and we were kind of like the, outliers for sure. Which is
absolutely
good in a lot of ways because we got back with kids, but there were so many things that just made it difficult and just disheartening, and like it didn't even feel like we were back, and everybody was just down. Like even the kids, you could tell everybody was just down. We were just, it was not great.
Well, and that's why I think too, maybe that had something to do with you being burnt out.
I think so.
Right?
I think it maybe contributed.
Maybe it wasn't everything up to that point, but maybe it was, you got to that point, now you have to follow all these rules and regulations on top of the rules and regulations you already have to follow, on top of the rules and regulations for being the nurse side of things that you have to follow. You're probably going,
all the things that are supposed to make your high school career fun weren't allowed.
Wasn't allowed. Wasn't fun anymore.
No, so why are we here? Like that made it, and like you couldn't do anything fun in your class. But all those lessons that I learned at those classes over this, I couldn't do them.
Ixnay.
They were not allowed because we were online. Even though we're all sitting in the classroom, we still had to be online because many families could choose to not send their students back. They didn't feel safe. So then we had what was called like hybrid classes where some kids were sitting in the classroom, some kids were sitting at home. So basically they were doing like the 2020 stuff while the others are trying to get back to face-to-face stuff.
Yeah.
But you, as a teacher, you were responsible for both sides. So you were trying to do basically two different roles at the same exact time and meet the needs of everybody, and it wasn't. It was you were catered to those at home. And then the kids at school were doing at-home things but sitting in the classroom. And that was not fun.
Brutal.
It was not
Sounds
fun.
brutal.
Yeah. So, I mean, even in the lunchroom, it was dumb. It was just like...
Lunchroom's great. That's like the best part of the day.
That's supposed to be your favorite subject, right?
It's like, ooh, lunch.
It was not even... I mean, it was... the social distancing, because then they had to take their masks off to eat. So then the social distancing and...
So you couldn't be around your friends or anything like that.
And it was assigned, because then if anybody came up positive, then we had to...
isolate the whole table.
Contact, trace, who did you sit with at lunch? So we had to keep a strict seating chart at lunch.
Come on.
It was dumb. So it was, and then the students were crabby.
Yeah, because they didn't want to be there at that point. They're like, this is a job. I'm a 15-year-old high school kid. Now I'm at a job that I don't want to be at, but I have to be here because I'm a 15-year-old kid that needs education.
Right.
Can you really blame them?
I know it was brutal. It was brutal, to say the least. I knew at that time, like my own mental health was declining because I was not finding the joy that I had previously.
Yeah, and it's funny because I never believed in mental health until that. I really didn't. Until all of that
thing, huh?
Until all that happened, I thought, just suck it up, move on, go drink a beer like the rest of us, or go for a hike. Or
speaking of which, I think I'll trade this out here.
Go ahead. But it really was, and then 2020 came around, and that changed everything. Some good stuff came out of it. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. Some great stuff did come out of that, but. The overall mental health thing really, I think, skyrocketed at that point.
I agree. I deal with a super fragile and population to begin with. Teenagers.
In your situation, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got kids that don't even know really who they are yet, or where they want to go, or what they want to do, and now you're you were forcing them 100%. To obey this and to obey that and to do this and to do that. And at the end of the day, they're going, why am I even here?
And specifically teaching healthcare providers, so
that have to have hands-on.
And they're not allowed into the clinical setting. So now we're doing virtual clinical. Are you kidding me? No. You're not going to learn how to do a bath on a patient through video. No, you have to do it for real on a real patient, not on a mannequin.
And the funny thing about
real patient.
And the funny thing about that is our nurses are on the front line when something like this happens. I get it, right? They're still teenagers. They don't have they're not adults. They're not 18 years old. They can't make their own decisions, right? So it's up to the parents. I understand all of that. But if you got a 17-year-old kid that says, I'm going into being a nurse or a doctor or whatever, they should have the right to be like, teach me how to do this here and now. I don't care if it's during a pandemic or not. We're here to do it now.
Right.
Teach me because I am going to be in the front of this line.
Right. Yeah. There's so much like that is, I feel like when the parents' choice, which I don't disagree with, I get that, but sometimes it goes to an extreme, or the best interest is not considered.
Yeah, I always look at it and go, everybody wants the best for their kid, and you have the right to push your kid only if they want to be pushed. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. I don't have kids, so I'm kind of talking out of, kind of talking out of the side of my face. But
that sounds good to me. I mean, there's gotta be a happy medium there. So
agreed. Yeah. And like I said, some kids need to be pushed, whether maybe they just don't have the drive. Maybe they don't have the go. Yep. You need to get it done.
Buttercup.
We spent a lot of time on that I didn't think we were going to spend.
Sorry,
no, it's
I
good.
know I kind of went off on it.
No, it was. I was there too.
Long story short, I got burnt out in that job, and I knew I needed something different. I had recently completed another degree because I was trying to find that happiness, trying to find something to fulfill me. So I had done a lot of extra brain power working on a degree, as well as doing some online teaching for a college. And a lot of the decision that I made was actually trying to prepare myself for my future. I wanted to get my doctorate degree, my PhD, because I wanted to have the option to be able to teach online, ironically.
I was just going to say, that's a little weird, right?
Because both my master's degree and my doctorate degree I earned online, and I really loved online education. And I thought that would be an opportunity for me down the road to work remotely, care for my in-laws if, when they aged in place, because that has always been the plan, was that my in-laws would age in place and that my husband would be the successor of the farm. So that way, but then he also currently is working just side by side with his dad. If his dad was aging in place, who's the partner for my husband, right? So that was the whole thing. Well, who's going to be the other driver? Who's going to hand him wrenches? I can't do much, but I can try, and at least be another set of eyes. I can at least do some of the paperwork. I wanted to be that.
You want to be involved that way too.
Absolutely. I wanted to be able to help him. And so my goal was, if I could teach online remotely, that I would be able to be everything to everyone.
Oh, I can already see it now. 6 years from now, the kids are all out of the house. You're going to have a remote class online. You have auto steer in the tractor, so you can kick your feet up and be like, so hold on a second. I got to turn around on this headland here.
Yep.
Okay. We're
not even anymore, right? Right? I can just boop, 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 boop. No.
I mean, it's a good thought process.
That was the idea behind it. Like, how am I going to be able to pull a full-time income, carry our insurance benefits, be a care provider for my in-laws,
a full-time mom and a full-time hired hand on the farm.
And how am I going to do that? And online teaching was my solution. That was my proposal to Peter. So I've been thinking, I think I want to go back to school.
Like going, what?
He's like,
again?
God damn it, woman.
I can totally see it too.
True Peter Shanks style, he had my back. He always has my back. Like, he's like, whatever you want to do, man. Like, sounds good. Like, I got you. Like, as long as you've got it worked out, he trusts me to make these decisions. He's like, if you think you can make that work and that's what you want to do, I got you.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Dan's Diesel Performance. If you're looking to improve your truck's performance, efficiency, or appearance, check out Dan's Diesel Performance. They manufacture turbochargers, fuel injectors, fuel pumps, transmissions, intake piping, and much, much more. Plus, they offer all the top brands in the diesel industry. They're located in Machesney Park, Illinois. Visit their website at dansdieselperformance.com or give them a call at 815-977-5865.
So that's what I did. I started online education for my PhD. So a doctorate in nursing with a specialization in education. So it was a PhD with like this education piece to it because I wanted to be basically a college professor online. Okay. And you could do that with a master's, but way more doors open if you have your doctorate. Now remember, I was already all the way over on the salary schedule.
Correct.
So me doing this had no financial benefit. I was done. I was maxed out on that teacher's. All I could do for my money at the school was get older, which was happening.
Put your time in. Put your time in, right?
So, okay, but the time is going to pass anyway. So
Exactly.
I might as well do something to prepare myself for the future. So that was the whole goal behind it. So I started taking these online classes, was loving it, was great. I had these great ideas.
Can I ask where you took those from?
Walden University.
Walden.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was where I got my master's too.
Just in case if somebody out there is maybe in a similar situation as you, they might be able to.
I'm basically like clearance nurse. I got my master's degree as the first cohort that went through their MSN program at Walden, so I got a discount.
Yes.
And then I got my doctorate degree with a 35% discount because I was alumni.
Yes.
Bargain shopper. Like,
Heck yeah.
So that was awesome. So I was getting this discount. That was actually where the idea came from. Like something was itching in me. I got this email saying, "Hey, 35% discount," and then I came to Peter and said, "Hey, so I could get, and then like crunching the numbers, I'm like, we could get this discount. Plus, I have tuition reimbursement, and like it really wouldn't be that much. Like we could do it, and then it's going to set us up for the future so that I can
100%
do all these things that we talked about.
Yep,
doing.
I get it.
So." Charge forward. Doing my doctorate, I started my dissertation. Took me a little longer than I hoped. I had a couple little speed bumps along the way, but that's fine. I ended up defending my dissertation on February 26th of 2020. Like, whatever, 20 days before we got sent home from school.
Less than a month.
And the ironic part was like my whole goal was to become an online teacher. And we were sent home with this pandemic to be online teachers. And I hated it. I hated it so much. But I had been teaching at the college level prior to that. So I was an adjunct instructor for Rasmussen University. So
okay.
I was teaching nursing students, and was fine. But then when the pandemic came and everything became virtual, it's a different deal. You're not just teaching theory, and then they go into the clinical setting and they learn it, they solidify the information. Wasn't how it was anymore, and that just
sucked.
Just completely sucked. It burnt me out, and I was cynical and crabby and depressed and just everything I didn't want to be. I was not the person I wanted to be, and I knew it. I could feel it. It was awful.
So you accepted a job. April 1st of 2021,
yes,
right?
So when we all went back to school, I got through that year, but I knew I couldn't do this any longer, and Peter saw my mental health declining. He said, you know what, do whatever you need to do, despite the tuition reimbursement that we took, and we got to pay it back. That's fine. Money's just money. There's no amount of money that can make you happy. You can find what makes you happy. So
100% agree.
So I applied, got hired at U of W health system, Swedish American, and as a NICU nurse, which I never thought I would have the chance to do again. I thought I'd been out of the game for way too long, that they would never want me back. And
wrong.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was on the biggest high ever. Oh my God, it was so awesome. I was like, what? Really? Really? And it was, when I had my interview, it wasn't even like, it didn't even feel like an interview. When I went in for my interview, it was like, oh, well, when you start, we're going to do this and this. And I'm like, when I start? Does that mean
easy now? Don't get my hopes up and crush them.
They took me on the tour of this brand new facility. It was gorgeous. Everything was, they hadn't even moved in yet. They were still in their old unit. And I think I interviewed in February or something. My official start date was April, but I told them I had to finish out my school year. I was not going to leave the school high and dry. That's not my style. I'm going to finish out my contract. So they started me April 1st with training on just weekends. So what they call in the nursing world, they call it PRN, or registry, or per diem, which means you're not full-time, you're not part-time, you're per diem. So you pick up here and there. Whenever it works.
Yeah.
So they put me on the schedule that way, and I could do some of my orientation on weekends, and I didn't even have spring break in there. So they just basically, on a few weekends here and there until school got out. June 1st, I came on full time, and haven't looked back. I just love it so much.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Are you on days, nights?
I'm on nights. I started off on days for orientation, but I was hired for nights, and they asked me at my interview, do you want to go on the list to go on days? I'm like, well, I'm applying for a night shift, and let me at least give it a chance. Let me at least try, right? Because they assume that you don't want nights. They assume everybody wants days, right? So they've got this list running, and then when a day spot opens, then they kind of go first come, first serve. Whoever's on the list gets the bump up. So I didn't go on the list at my interview, which a lot of people do, and I said, I want to give it a shot. I want to try it, right? And I remember the first night that I went, I was so nervous. I'm like, how am I going to stay awake? How am I going to do this? Whatever. It was the easiest thing. It was no problem. I mean, here and there on some nights I get sleepy or whatever. But then you got techniques that you use, Monster here and there.
I would say, coffee.
Get up and move or go do something, so especially if it's a slow night and we're not like, your babies are sleeping and you're done your checks and there's not like craziness happening. Sometimes it can be quiet, which is a naughty word in an intensive care unit. If you're a nurse and you're listening to this, you know that. You don't say the Q word. Because then all hell breaks loose.
I was just going to say.
That's like a jinx, immediate jinx for...
Like when the puppy dog goes over and you're like, where? I don't hear the puppy dog anywhere.
No, or a quiet toddler, not good.
Same thing.
Yep. So I was fine. And so I ended up going on the list, right? The day shift list, because I knew that it took a long time. And I wanted the option to be there. And so, but basically when a position pops up for days to open, they have to ask, but I always decline it. Because I'm happy on nights. My crew on nights is so good. Like everybody just fits together. We have fun. We are a good team. We get an admission. We just like pound it out in like a well-oiled machine.
So let me ask a couple questions here because I don't know the answer to this. And I'm sure a lot of people don't. Do you all have specific jobs? Like in the NICU?
In the NICU?
Yeah, in the NICU unit. Like, are you like, hey, I'm gonna be the one that does this tonight, and you're gonna be the one that does that tonight, et cetera,
that's a good question. We actually have, so our unit is 32 beds, so we can have up to 32 babies at a time. And in an intensive care situation, the like nurse ratio to patient is 1 to 3 max.
Oh, so there's quite a few of you there.
So you will not have more than 3 patients at a time in an intensive care setting. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. If you got a really, really, really sick patient, you'll have 1. It'll be a 1-to-1, which means your baby's not doing well. Yeah. So we all take care of babies. So we all have an assignment. There's a specific nurse that's going to be assigned to be the transport nurse, which means you still have an assignment. But if we get a call from another hospital that there's a sick baby out in a outlying hospital that doesn't have a NICU, you go by ambulance and pick up that baby.
Gotcha.
Some NICUs have by flight, but our hospital does not.
Okay.
So, and then there's also going to be what we call a first admit nurse, which means you have a patient assignment, but if a baby's born that needs us, someone else is gonna take over your assignment, and you're gonna go take care of this new admit. And you're gonna admit this patient, and then there's also a charge nurse. So, so usually we're running with somewhere between 9 to 13 nurses on a shift. And one of those nurses is the charge nurse, who's in charge of all those nurses and all the patients and all the parents and all the chaos. Anything that happens on that unit goes through the charge nurse to figure out, the coordinator of chaos, essentially. And she's usually patient-free. On my unit, the charge nurse is patient-free, which means she doesn't take care of any babies.
But she's the one that'll answer questions. She's the one that'll...
She's your go-to.
Gotcha.
She's your, if there's something happens or if there's going to be a delivery, it starts with the charge nurse and then she delegates.
Like that's never happened before.
I'm a hand talker, sorry. And she delegates out to the first admit, or if a transport call comes in, and just coordinates all the things to happen. Talks to the neonatologist, or the docs that specialize in newborns. We always have a neonatologist and a neonatal nurse practitioner on staff at all times, like 24/7.
Awesome.
So they have sleep rooms, and the night shift, they'll go around, do rounds right before, like maybe between 8:30 and 9:30. They'll walk around, see every patient, talk to every nurse, and we'll tell them any concerns we have or what, just basically so that they know if they're going to get a call in the middle of the night, they have a little bit of heads up on what it might be.
Hey, it could be one of 3 patients because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah, exactly. So FYI, this is going on, or I'm a little worried about this, or hey, do you want me to get, so we don't have to call them in the middle of the night to ask about a lab. Do I need to draw a lab? Just don't have to wake them up unless we have to.
Correct.
So the charge nurse then will be the one who communicates with the physicians and communicates with the labor and delivery unit, or all the things. So since I've been there, and then there's 8-ish nurses who just have patients and they're just doing their thing.
Yep.
So since I've been there, I have been trained to be transport nurse. So I do that, and I've we don't do a ton of transports on my unit. We're kind of a new unit. We've only been a NICU for, I think about 5 years now. Well, it must be 6 years now. And prior to that, they were a special care unit, which took care of less sick babies. So we have like a level 2 nursery versus a level 3 nursery.
And you guys are level 3?
We're level 3 now. Level 3, they just moved to. Like, gosh, I don't know what year it was. It was several years before I went there. So, but relatively new in general.
Yeah.
And so then I've also recently trained to be a charge nurse. So now I do.
Is that something you're looking forward to?
It's scary. It's the scary one because I don't love confrontation. So if you have a disgruntled parent or you have some type of, somebody who doesn't want to follow the rules or something like that, or you have a staff member who's being a pain, it goes to the chargers and you've got to figure it out and you got to know. And you have no nurse manager to go to. You've got no human resource. I'm it. On night shift, I'm it. On days, they got all the resources in the world. On nights, we don't, which I'm not complaining about.
I'm about to say that's. I was just going to get into that here in a second, but I'm going to let you finish this before we get into that.
You've got no nurses, you've got no managers, you've got no higher ups, you've got even your docs are sleeping. Unless you need them, your docs aren't there.
The 2 docs that you just mentioned, they make their rounds and then nighty night. Only call me if you need me.
They're hoping they don't hear from us.
Well, and I think that you don't want to contact them. That means everything went fairly smooth. Yeah. Everything went...
Not the Q word, but...
No, everything went smooth. I said smooth. Everything went smooth. Yeah. Everything didn't happen the way that you thought it could or might.
And some nights it does. Some nights it's rough.
Yeah.
On a rough night, it's as rough as it gets.
Oh, I can believe it.
You can have a bad night, but then you can have a bad night in the NICU, and that's about as bad as it gets.
That's about as bad as it gets. 100%.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and it doesn't get any. You feel for that.
Unfortunately, I've been the nurse on some of those nights, and I've been the charge nurse on some of those nights. And there's a little bit of a joke going around my unit that when I'm charge nurse, there's like a little black cloud that follows me around. In fact, I just learned this actually last weekend that there's a term coined for it now.
Uh-oh.
The Shanks show.
The Shanks show.
Like, oh no, Sarah's in charge tonight.
Are you guys figuring this out that I shouldn't be in charge of this shit or what?
Like, oh no, everybody got your running shoes on. Are you ready? Because here goes the Shanks show.
I guess when it comes to that, it's just kind of the luck of the draw. I bet, really, more than anything, because it's not like you all don't know what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing and how you're supposed to do it, when you're supposed to do it.
No, it's not so much that. It's like those are like the really high risk deliveries walking the door. Like you've got like an idea of who's down in labor and delivery, who's on our list of like watch. But I mean, anybody could walk through those doors. A train wreck walk through the door. We've got obviously a population in downtown Rockford that can be very, very high risk. And, just the drug abuse and the prostitution and the just a lot of things that can be the violence and different things can be very, very difficult.
And you all have to deal with that.
Yeah, you got to try to pick up the pieces and then remain compassionate and remain empathetic and
happy.
It's rough like that. Sometimes it can be very rough to talk to these parents after you know that there was a lot of, the life decisions that they made, or even like not even like just the immediate decisions that they made.
100%.
Led to the outcome that we're dealing with, and
whatever outcome that may be.
Yeah,
good, bad,
it can be
otherwise.
very difficult sometimes. So anyway, that's definitely the worst part of my job is.
I can imagine.
Nights.
Yeah, I kind of didn't want to bring that up a little bit, just because you are in a level 3 trauma for kids.
Yeah.
And newborns specifically.
Right.
That's tough. That's
be
tough. You're pumped when the little guy or girl comes through and they're shaking their hands and they're breathing on their own and life is great. The other ones, that's tough.
It is tough. Thankfully, it's lot less than the positive outcomes. Way more positive outcomes. So many times, like there's also apparently my colleagues like to make fun of me because there's also an issue because I'm kind of an emotional girl sometimes, and in a good way. Like I get like verklempt, right? Remember those old SNL? You're probably too young for that.
I didn't really watch
But you get
SNL.
like all choked up, like you're verklempt. I'm getting verklempt.
So you can't talk.
I can't, like, they just need a minute. Because when I take that baby out, so like you bring the baby up or whisked away from the parents, bring it upstairs, doing all the things, and the parents come up, and that first time you get to like, the parent gets to hold their baby, or just you get to like talk to them about all the things and like teach the parents about what all these different wires and tubes and all these things mean. And then it goes from them being so overwhelmed and like overwhelmed.
What the hell's going
What
on?
the hell, to then them talking about he's using the same vocabulary that we've taught them. Like this is, when your baby is bradying right now. Oh, and next thing you know, they're saying, oh, did he have a Brady? Like, oh, it's really, really awesome. And most deliveries I go to, I get verklempt.
You get a little emotional. That's all right.
My peers make fun of me, but
That's okay.
I'm not ashamed.
So you really enjoy doing what you're doing.
I love it so much. It's the best. I can't believe that I get paid to do it.
That's the kind of job that everybody wants right there. You can't believe you're getting paid to do
I
it.
can't believe they pay me like the amount that they pay me. Like when I first went back, thought again, I hadn't been at the bedside in a long time. And, the research that I'd done was all online, like how, what is the average salary for a nurse, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so when they asked me in my initial interview with HR, well, what do you want to, what are you expecting for pay? And I was like, well, I don't know. I was thinking like
X amount of dollars, right?
Right. Like I was thinking like at least 30 plus. And they're like $30 an hour. And they're like, well, I mean, like you have your bachelor's degree, right? And I was like, yeah, like I have my doctorate degree.
Yeah, like I got my doctorate's degree over here.
Like,
Bachelor.
Oh, well, that's
Playoffs.
Yeah. So then she starts telling me all these things. I'm like, oh, well then, like Peter, guess what?
We made the right choice, Peter.
I'm really a sugar mama.
Congratulations, Pete. You're living a lot of our dreams right now. Enjoy it.
Poor guy, he's gonna be
Good for you.
embarrassed.
Good for you. I'm just glad you're happy and enjoying it.
No, it's
and,
the best. I just love it.
Well, thank you for coming over
thanks for having me.
and talking a little bit about your experiences and the awesome things that you're doing now, helping all these young children that can't help themselves.
Yeah, these families. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep it up. I'm sure a lot of parents out there appreciate you. You might not hear it, but I'm sure they do.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's awesome. Thanks.
thanks, Sarah. We'll talk to you.
Yep. See ya.